Let's turn our attention again to the Vietnam War, Ken Burns and Lynn Novick's latest landmark documentary. The 18-hour film begins on Sunday night. Judy Woodruff sat down with the co-directors to discuss how history shows the war was actually a long time in the making.
We've reconciled with Vietnam, but we haven't reconciled with ourselves. The newsflash is also they haven't reconciled with themselves.
By talking firsthand to North Vietnamese soldiers and civilians, Viet Cong guerrillas, and South Vietnamese civilians, soldiers, diplomats, the filmmakers hope to fill out the picture of what was happening in Vietnam and the U.S.
I've been to Hanoi, so I've seen some of the, remembrances of the war, but they don't have anything like this.
It would stretch to the Capitol building if they did this.
The Burns-Novick team spent a decade talking to hundreds of veterans from both sides of the bloody conflict, in which more than 3.5 million people may have died. Estimates are about 58,000 American military deaths, and the rest Vietnamese, Cambodians, and Laotians.
We Americans always assume we're at the center of this story of Vietnam, that the Vietnam War is about Americans.
Right.
The first episode looks at how, after one long and brutal war with the French, Vietnamese revolutionaries led by Ho Chi Minh ended nearly a century of French colonial occupation. With the Cold War intensifying, Vietnam is divided into two at Geneva. Communists in the north aim to reunify the country, while America supports Ngo Dinh Diem's untested regime in the south.
There is clearly an unknowable aspect to all this, but Lynn, do you come away, do you think, understanding how the United States got pulled into this despite the French being kicked out, essentially, Dien Bien Phu? I mean, the Senator John F. Kennedy saying the Americans don't belong in a land war in Asia. Decisions made by Eisenhower not to get involved. And yet, the United States was pulled in.
Yes.
Did you understand why at the end, do you think?
Well, it is sometimes stunning to think with all those road maps and signposts saying don't do it, we still did. It seems clear that there's definitely a Cold War context that's very important, and certain kind of received wisdom, conventional wisdom about that, and that we have to stop communism and containment and that whole idea.
Even so, the film shows that in May of 1964, President Johnson himself expressed misgivings about why the U.S. was at war and Vietnam's value in a phone call with National Security Advisor McGeorge Bundy.
I just stayed awake last night thinking about this thing. The more I think of it, I don't know what in the hell. It looks like we're getting into another Korea. It just worries the hell out of me. I don't see what we can ever hope to get out of there with once we're committed. I don't think it's worth fighting for, and I don't think we can get out. And it's just the biggest damn mess.
It is. It's an awful mess.
And I just thought about ordering those kids in there, and what in the hell am I ordering him out there for?
One thing that has occurred to me.
What is Vietnam worth to me? What is it worth to this country?
Yeah.
Now, of course, if you start running the communists, they may just chase you right into your own kitchen.
Yeah. That's the trouble. And that is what the rest of that half of the world is going to think if this thing comes apart on us.
When we talk about when did the war start, this year people are talking about the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War, and we're not really sure why. 50th anniversary of what? The Vietnam War did not start in 1967. That was a moment of great kinetic energy in the war. But it started long before that, and you could argue that it really started in 1945.
Which we do in the film, when
Indeed,
the OSS parachutes into northern Vietnam to sort of help this ragtag insurgency that they hope will help us against the Japanese, and it happens to be led by a guy named Ho Chi Minh. So all of a sudden, all of the normal stabilized sense of Ho Chi Minh as the leader and the bad guy get challenged, and it's further challenged as you walk down just that path in Vietnam.
Ho Chi Minh, did you come away from this experience understanding better who he was and what he represented? I mean, it's striking. He was, quoting Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson?
During his declaration of Vietnamese independence. He's quoting Thomas Jefferson, and there's an OSS officer standing next to them. So you begin to say, as Lynn is talking about, if you understand the overlay of the Cold War and how we're going to not have World War III, no one wants World War III, right. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick our little battles and fight it through places like South Vietnam, North Vietnam struggle, that you can misread what a local leader is all about.
The war began to seem like an open pit, one North Vietnamese remembered. The more young people were lost there, the more they sent.
I witnessed Americans dying. They carried away the body and they wept. I witnessed such scenes and thought Americans, like us Vietnamese, also have a profound sense of humanity. They cared about each other.
One of the things you do so powerfully, which you're talking about here, is bringing to an American audience the Vietnamese view of this, experience of this, the depth to which Vietnam and the Vietnamese people suffered in this war. You make them come alive, become human, the way I don't believe any other vehicle I can think of has done.
We were able, with the really incredible talents of a Vietnamese producer, to communicate to people what we wanted to know, which was the human story of the war, not the big propaganda narrative and the sort of conventional wisdom, but just what was it really like for you and your family? What did you go through?
Even the Vietnamese veterans, we avoided talking about the war. People sing about victory, about liberation. They're wrong. Who won and who lost is not a question. In war, no one wins or loses. There's only destruction. Only those who have never fought like to argue about who won and who lost.
In a big tent way, the film invites voices from every corner and lets viewers judge history, try to resolve some of the nation's unfinished business for themselves.
We made sure there was room for everybody in our film. If you still think we should be fighting the commies there still, you know, there's the representation of that in our film. If you believe that it was wrong from the very beginning, there are people that will represent that point of view. But more importantly, all those shades of gray are able to coexist.
The documentary's 10 episodes will air over the next 2 weeks.
The premiere is this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on your PBS station.